All righty. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. It's Thursday. It's January 21st, and I am just thrilled to be here with you today, as I am every single day. And that's true. I don't, I know that I say that all the time, but I want you to know that it is really heartfelt, that I truly, I get so much enjoyment about sharing these ideas. And when I hear back from some of you out there, and I get emails, pretty frequently. But I mean, every single time that I hear back from someone, whether it's, a compliment or it's a question or it's a suggestion or a request or anything in between all of that, it just makes me so absolutely happy and thrilled, because I know that, it's a little bit of work to do all this, every day, and knowing that people are out there benefiting from it, and that we're engaging with each other, and that, and that there's growth happening, and that there's improvements happening, and that there's happiness and compassion happening. I tell you, it just makes me so happy. So I just want to say that, real quick, to thank you all. Thank you, all of you who have emailed me and messaged me about these videos. Again, whether it's just a compliment, a question, a request, a concern, a suggestion, whatever it is, I just love it. And I thank every one of you for reaching out the way that you have. And for those of you who have not, consider this an invitation. Okay, because truly, I mean, if there's anything, even if it's just this slightest little thing that you want to mention, that that maybe you're like, oh, I don't want to bother him, I don't know, is this appropriate, whatever, just do it and see what happens, because it's amazing, and you never know where some of these conversations are going to go. And that's one of the really, really magical things about doing this, because we are interacting with one another. Even if you're just listening and I'm just talking, there is an interaction, there is a connection happening, and I honor that connection, and I really value that connection. So let's keep that connection strong. And if there is anything at all that you want to say or ask or do or whatever, then please don't hesitate any longer and just try and see how it goes. All right. And I promise you, you won't be sorry. I promise you. All right, everybody. Well, here we are again. So this week we've been going over what we might call the crown jewels of mindfulness, right? The sort of the four sort of constituents, in a way, of where mindfulness exists, right, for us, like the ways in which we can experience mindfulness, right, and also not just mindfulness, as you've heard me say over the last dozen or so episodes here. It's not just about mindfulness, right? It's also about what we might call heartfulness or kindfulness, right? Is to bring into the idea of mindfulness, which is mostly associated with things like stress reduction, with coping, with resilience to being overworked, and emotional intelligence, and all these things, which are very, very valuable, right? They're very, very valuable, and these alone are worth the price of admission on any mindfulness program that you're talking about, right? But when we can add in the component of compassion and heartfulness and kindfulness, well, that really does take it to a different level, and a level that is really beautiful and really enriching and satisfying and rewarding on a completely different level. And so that's why I really do talk a lot about the compassion and also the empathy, which allows for the compassion. And it's just, I'm just so excited about all this. And so anyway, what we've been talking about this week, though, is those four basic tenets, if you will, of what mindfulness is, right? So mindfulness, in my experience and the way that I teach it, right, and it can be approached in many different ways, but the way that I teach mindfulness is through presence, through acceptance, through compassion, and through curiosity. right? Now, of course, I've been going in order this week. We've been doing each of these, we're kind of reviewing each of these in an episode here, either on the podcast or the YouTube channel, and we've been going in reverse of the order that I just named, right? So we started with curiosity, then we went to compassion, then yesterday we talked about acceptance, and the thing on the flip side of acceptance, which is letting go, right? It's one or the other, and in almost any circumstance, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday, I don't believe I did in the episode, that in any given moment, if you're feeling that you're, overwhelmed in some way or emotionally triggered in some way or just having a hard time in any kind of way, then I can pretty much guarantee that there is either something that you could be accepting in that moment, or there is something that you could be letting go of in that moment, right? So we talked about that yesterday. And so today we're going to bring it back home to the original, to that first one, which is presence, right? And now here's where this stuff gets really, really interesting, right? So presence can be seen as the start of these four constituents, for tenets, for realms, whatever you want to call it, right? The crown jewels, whatever you want to call these four things of mindfulness, right? The pillars of mindfulness, something like that, right? Presence is the thing that kind of opens us up to them, right? However, that last one, curiosity, and this is where this work always takes on this feeling of a cyclical sense of cycle, right? And that last one, curiosity, is actually what facilitates presence. So presence facilitates all of them. Curiosity facilitates presence. And so it becomes just this, it doesn't matter where it starts and where it ends. There is no point in finding that division line of the start or the finish of this work, right? It is about the cycle of it, right? And so today we're going to talk about presence, which really is and again, I'm tempted to say like this is the main thing, right? But curiosity is also the main thing, and so is acceptance the main thing, and so is compassion the main thing. So that's the thing. They're all equal, right? And there's no one that's more important or less important than the others. And each one of these, right? Each one of these concepts and whatever you want to call them, again, whether it's tenets, concepts, constituents, realms, areas, crown jewels, whatever you want to call them, right? Pillars, right? Each one of these in and of itself, right? And it's taken individually or taken as a whole, what these do is they facilitate those four constituents of well-being. Now, I'm always going to come back to those, right? Those are something that are really the whole point, right? Because the whole point of doing this work is to be well and to be happy, right? And we do this work because there are times where we're not feeling well and we're not feeling happy, whether we're feeling it or not, but we are not well and we are not happy. And the unwellness and the unhappiness becomes manifest and becomes evident to us through the difficulties that we experience, right? Through the way in which we suffer through difficulties that we experience, right? And so again, you could now remember the four constituents of well-being, right, are resilience, the ability to come back down after you've been aroused by something. And I don't mean aroused in the fun way. I mean like in the emotional, stress arousing kind of thing, right? Because again, like I just told one of my clients this morning, one of my dear, dear clients this morning, is that, you don't want a life that doesn't include that arousal of, and again, not the good kind of arousal, but even the emotional arousal, even things like anger and things like shame and things like any of those emotions on the sort of negative polarity side of the emotional spectrum, right? We don't want to live life without them. Like those things make life very full. Not only that, but they also serve a very important purpose, right? So it's never about eliminating those emotions or those feelings that the emotions bring or any of that, right? But what it is allowing ourselves to feel it, allowing ourselves to rise up with it, but then how quickly we can come back down to our baseline place of balance and equilibrium, right? That's the key. And so that resilience is one of the four constituents of well-being, right? How quickly you can come back down from a state of hyperarousal in an emotional way how quickly you can come back down is a sign of your, mental, physical, emotional, psychological wellness. Right. And of course, and again, well, let's just go through the list. So the second constituent, just to remind you, is outlook, right? The ability to have a positive outlook on situations and people in our lives, right? And the third is attention, right? Knowing where our attention is at any given moment and the ability to guide our attention and to hold our attention on something, not to be distracted, right? And then finally, fourth is generosity. Right? Now, again, taken alone or taken separately, taken alone and separately, or taking it together as a whole, the pillars of mindfulness, the presence, the acceptance, the compassion, and the curiosity will feed those four constituents of well-being. Right. And so that's the key here, right? That's what we're talking about. And most of the people who come to this work, right, as Western citizens, coming to it in the, sort of 30s or 40s or 50s as, of our age, we're coming to it because we need it, because for so long we've been practicing some form of the opposite of those four constituents of well-being, right? And make no mistake that it is a practice, right? It's a practice to develop those constituents, but unfortunately for most of us, we have been practicing the opposite way for a long time, which also means that we have not been practicing presence, acceptance, compassion, and curiosity, right? So I just want to kind of give you that sort of, understanding of how vital all of these things are, right? Again, separately or together as a combination, all right? So again, if you have any questions about anything that I've covered up until this point, I know I just went on this whole long thing about reaching out, but seriously, if there's ever any questions, I mean, that's an important time to reach out, okay? Because and part of mindfulness and heartfulness and kindfulness, right, is also part of the ability to be okay asking questions. I think back sometimes on how many times I had a question about something, but I was too afraid to ask because I didn't want to be seen as dumb or unknowledgeable, or I didn't want to be seen as weak through a lack of the knowledge that I'm showing, right? And that of course comes into the self-compassion, right? That there is no shame in misunderstanding something. There is no shame in having questions about something. There is no shame in wanting to know more. Okay, so if there's anything that's preventing you from asking a question that you have about anything that I've covered here in any episode, then I really encourage you to first, maybe sit with that feeling for a little bit, right? And kind of, try to, again, apply a little curiosity in the present moment and see where that's coming from, right? And then apply a little self-compassion and just ask the question. Right? Accept the situation as it is, apply compassion for yourself, and ask the question. You see what I just did there? Right? I just covered those four pillars of mindfulness right there. Right? And that's what happens, right? It's all like these are the big sort of areas of this, and this is how it works, right? So let's talk about presence, right? Now, again, presence is something that is not very intuitive for most people in this, in the Western society, right? It's not very intuitive. Again, we are taught as children, right? As very young children, right? We're taught to look forward to things, right? We're taught to look forward to, looking forward to Christmas, right? Looking forward to our birthday. And then, of course, you get to kindergarten, and you're in kindergarten, you're looking forward to first grade. Then in first grade, you're looking forward to second grade, and on and on and on until you get to middle school, which is, just like a purgatory, right? Because you don't have enough freedom, but you have enough responsibility, and it's a hard time for most people, right? But then you can look forward to getting past that and getting into high school, right? And then after high school, you get into college. And then after college, you get your job. And then you can buy your house and buy your car and get married and have kids and all of these things. And then when your children are born, what are you doing? You're thinking about them getting into first grade and second grade and third grade and fourth grade and on and on and on until one day they give you grandchildren, right? And it's, so this is the way our lives are. We're constantly looking forward to things. Now, remember, the concept of practice is very, very key here. It's very, very crucial to the understanding of how all this works, right? That because from the time you were 3 years old or 2 years old even, thinking about all of this that I just laid out, right? Thinking about the birthday and then the Christmas and then this and then that and the first, second, third, all those, different grades that you're going to go through, right? So from the time you were 2 or 3 years old, you have been practicing this, this ability. You've been practicing this skill of looking forward to things, right? Which is not paying attention to what is happening right now, right? Which means that as we practice this our whole lives, right, we adopt it and it becomes part of the way that we operate, right? It becomes literally part of our operating system of our brain. Right? And so what happens then, right, is when we get to be adults, right, we're sitting here eating dinner and we're already looking forward to dessert, right? Or, Monday morning, we're thinking about Friday night, right? We're thinking about, football playoffs, and we're thinking about, all kinds of stuff that are all based in the future, right? Or we have this real tendency to look back on things, right, in our past. We're either, and of course, when it comes to the stress, right, what we're looking at is we're really worrying about what's going to happen in the future, right? We're eating dinner worrying whether dessert is going to taste good, right? Even while we're eating our dinner, we're concerned that maybe we'll be disappointed with dessert, right? On a very subtle and hard to pin down way, that's what's happening, right? Again, Monday morning, right? We don't like Monday morning. Monday morning is bad. And we're looking forward in a way like, am I going to make it to the weekend, right? Like what is, worrying about all the things that stand in between me and Friday night when I can just let go and have a couple of beers and relax and go to sleep and sleep in on Saturday and all that, right? And so it becomes a skill that we've all gotten really, really good at, right? So the idea then is now to practice the other way, right? Now, the very definition of mindfulness, right, is moment-to-moment awareness, right? Now, when we say the present moment, right? Oh, pardon me. The definition of mindfulness is moment-to-moment non-judging awareness. Pardon me for that. That always has to be included because it's not just about being aware of what's happening, right? Like if you're stuck in a thunderstorm, you're very aware of the thunderstorm, right? But you're labeling that thunderstorm as bad, and therefore you're suffering through it. Right. And that goes back to what we talked about yesterday, right? Where if we can just accept that we're in a thunderstorm and we'll do the best we can to stay dry, but knowing that we're going to get wet. But you know what? In a matter of time, we'll be home in our warm, safe house. We'll be able to take off the wet clothes and we'll be able to put them in the laundry, put on some, maybe take a hot shower, put on some warm sweatpants or something. Doesn't that sound nice, right? After being all cold and wet, right? And we can, but the thing is that when we can remember that we will, soon be able to get warm again, well, then the thunderstorm doesn't seem that bad. Right. And it's easier to accept it at that point. Right. And therefore, if we accept it and we don't see it as something that is bad, then we don't suffer through it. It's that simple, folks. It really is. And again, now I know I just illustrated like looking forward to getting dry, but really what you're doing is you're recognizing not so much looking forward to getting dry, but what you're doing is you're recognizing the impermanence of the thunderstorm. Right? That the thunderstorm is not going to last forever. And eventually, at some point, I will be done with this thunderstorm. Right? And however long that takes and whatever happens in between, I will at one point be warm and dry again. right? And so therefore I can accept the fact that right now I am stuck in the thunderstorm right now. And that is what's happening as it's happening, right? And again, that's that moment to moment awareness, right? So the idea then, right? Let's talk about the present moment, right? Now, the present moment is a concept, right, that exists outside of clock time and calendar time, right? That is not, the present moment. Sometimes people equate the moment to moment, thing as a second, right? Which it is. That's technically that's a way that we can divide time. The closest thing that we can get to measuring the present moment is a second, right? So therefore, a half a second. There's actually a scientist who I was actually just watching a TED Talk the other day where he actually has divided. So the first third of a second, you're thinking of, you're reacting to what's happening around you. The second third of a second, you're processing what's happening. And then the third is when you're actually aware of who you are, what you are. It gets very complicated, but that's how, we can keep going and dividing further and further and further down. Right. So it's really better to look at the present moment as something that is not really part of time. Right. It's just now. Right. Now this is tricky because, again, we're practiced for our whole lives to measure, the amount of time that's going by, to keep track. We have calendars, we have clocks, we have all these different ways to gauge how close something is, or how much we, the appointments and the start times and the finish times and all that stuff, right? That's something we're very, very aware of all the time, right? So therefore, it's very difficult for some of us to really conceptually, grasp this concept of the present moment, right? Now, let me give you one really great way that maybe will help you to understand that, right? A great example that might help you to understand that. And this comes from Eckhart Tolle, who wrote a wonderful book called The Power of Now. And The Power of Now is actually not a book that he wrote. It's just a collection of different talks that he's given. And it's really, really quite wonderful. And there's, questions, and it's like in a question and answer conversational format. Great book, Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. And in that book, one of the things, and this is the first time I think this was ever articulated in this way for me, the first time I had ever heard it articulated this way, is that nothing will ever happen in the future. And nothing ever has happened. Nothing ever has happened in the past. Right? And that's very counterintuitive again, right? We are taught that something is going to happen in the future, right? In the future, I'm going to get that job, or I'm going to have a child, or I'm going to get married, or I'm going to, move into a big house, or I'm going to get a car, whatever. That's all going to happen sometime in the future, right? And in the past, I had, I had this trouble in the past, or I dealt with bullies in the past, or I dealt with this, that, or the other thing in the past, right? But none of that is true. None of it, right? Everything that will ever happen to you and everything that ever has happened to you has happened in the present moment. That's where everything goes on. Everything. Right? Now, yesterday we talked about how this work is all about, kind of tuning ourselves, right, as an instrument for living this life, right, for interacting with what's happening in our lives, right? That it's really, it all happens in here, right? Whether it's something that is internally driven, like a thought or an emotion, right, that is based on some sort of memory that's just popping up and arising within us, right? Or if it's things happening on the outside of our our bodies and our existence, right, and coming into us, right, in the form of other people, traffic jams, things at work, other experiences that we have, right? But it's us who is experiencing everything. right? And therefore it is us who is, who is in control of how that experience happens, right? And again, going back to what we said yesterday, the idea of acceptance and letting go is the key to be able to control how we process these things that are happening to us, right? But in this same vein of this understanding that we are the medium, right? We are the movie of our lives, right? Like everything that happens is happening through our perception, whether it's coming from inside or it's coming from outside, right? And so therefore, one of the ways in which we can really help to prime ourselves and get a very clear signal on all of this, right? Get a clear signal of what's happening inside of us and get a clear signal of what's really happening from the outside so that we can avoid things like clinging and aversion that are going to cause the suffering, right? Which is the opposite of the acceptance and letting go, right? That in order to create this clear signal, this I even suggested yesterday the metaphor of an artist priming a canvas, right? Every painter, when they maybe not every single painter, but traditionally and the way painting works, right, is that when you're about to start a new painting on a new canvas, the artist will first paint that canvas white. Basically, it's a special paint called gesso, right? Which creates a smooth and clean and clear surface for the artist to create something, right? And so in a very similar way, that's what's happening to us on the internal level, right? And it's what we have not been practicing, right? We've been practicing not doing that, right? What we practice is practicing from, but what we have practiced is jumping from one situation, one drama, one difficulty to another, to another, to another, to another, and our emotions are riding this train with that jumping back and forth. And when we do that, right, that's when we invite suffering. Right? So the idea then is to come to a clean place, come to a brand new, like release ourselves from all of that worrying about the future and ruminating over the past, because those are the things that create that interference, right? And of course that's on the internal, right? And then doing the same thing through compassion for others, right? So that when somebody does something, it doesn't cause us to have an emotional reaction that is going to, create more suffering, right? So by being able to accept what other people are doing and saying around us, it avoids that same kind of interference, right? So these are the things that create that static interference in our minds and prevent us from really seeing what is happening as it's happening, right? And so what happens at that point, it's a lot of happening around here. What happens at that point is that when we're dwelling in the confusion and the emotional reconciliation that happens and the emotional resolution that has to happen, right? Through the emotions are caused by the grasping, the clinging, the aversion and the anger that we feel towards other people, right? And when that emotional stuff is happening in our mind, right, that's again what's creating that confusion and that static. And in that moment, and this is why it matters, right, in that moment when life reaches out to you to interact with you on some way, right, whether it's your children reaching out and saying, hey mom, hey dad, can you help me with something? Hey mom, hey dad, I have something really important that I want to share with you, right? Or it's a friend, or it's a coworker, or it's a clerk at a store, right? Whatever it is, life is there to interact with you. And in those moments when you are caught up in the future of worrying and caught up in the past of ruminating, and you're dealing with this, and also caught up in the emotions of other people's actions, right? When you're in that place, you're not available for life to reach out and interact with you. In other words, you're not showing up for life. And so the key then becomes the awareness of what is happening as it's happening, right? A moment-to-moment awareness that is not judging, right? A moment-to-moment awareness that simply accepts what is arising right here, right now, even if that is something like anger or jealousy or rage or whatever it is, right? Again, those things are not the enemy. Right? We don't want to get into a place where we think of anger as something that's bad, right? We don't want to judge that either, right? We want to allow anger to happen. But when it does happen, we want to come back quickly and or as rapidly as is natural, let's put it that way. But the thing that we don't want to do, and I told you yesterday about Eckhart Tolle again, and not in that book, but in another book that he wrote, that that he talks about a duck on a pond, right? Where the duck, one duck swims a little too close to the other duck, and the duck, squawks and flaps its wings a little bit to let that first duck know, like, hey, you just got a little close to me, back off. Right? And so ducks, that's it. Now we're done. Well, have a nice day. Let's go back to being in the present moment and swimming on this pond. But humans, what we'll do is we'll think about that duck for days. Like, that son of a gun got so close to me. I'm going to look for him tomorrow, and I'm going to try to tell him off, and I'm going to give him his comeuppance. Right? All of it is not in the present moment. And the only way we can possibly show up to life fully is in the present moment, because that is where life is happening. Life is not happening in your imagination of what might happen in the future or what you think you remember from the past, because that's another thing, right? And that's something I got to make a note to do an episode on that, because the what we think of as the past and what we think of as the future, right? We have this tendency to think of these things as real things, and like memory somehow is like a almost like a file cabinet where we go in and we pick out a photograph and say, yes, this is my memory. That is not how it works, folks. Your memory is based on so many different emotional inputs that you have no idea if you're right about it or not, right? And that's why two people will remember the same exact thing that they saw together completely differently. Because again, you are that medium. Right? What you remember, what you experience in your life is based on your perception. And your perception is based on everything that's happened to you, everything that's happened to your parents and your grandparents and their grandparents, and it's part of your nervous system. And that is how you process what is happening in your world. Right? I often tell the story about, two people walking up and seeing a dog, right? Just, two people walking along the street, and there's a dog, waiting for a red light, and his owner has him on the leash, and he's just sitting there, right? The one person who had happy experiences as a child with a dog, right? Had maybe on Christmas morning one day, he opened a box, and the dog came bounding out as the most happy experience of that person's life, right? Well, that person's going to walk up to that dog and say, oh, can I pet that dog? He looks so friendly. I just love the way this dog looks, right? But the other person who maybe had a negative experience with a dog, right? Had a scary experience with a dog where the dog, chased this person, maybe bit this person, right? That person's going to be like, ooh, I don't know. That dog doesn't look so friendly to me. I'm a little afraid. I don't, you got that leash, right? Same dog. The dog hasn't done anything, right? The dog's just sitting there with his tongue hanging out of its mouth, right? But these two people experience that dog in completely different ways. And that is due to their own experiences throughout their lives. Right? And it's all implicit. It's not something that you remember and say, no, it's just a feeling. Right? And so that is the key, right? To being, to recognizing the fact that you do have this implicit thing going on is very, very helpful, right? But most importantly is to be present, right? To look at the dog without that judgment. And knowing that this dog is not the same dog that I had as a child, right? This dog is not the same dog that chased me around a playground and bit my hand as a child. right? This is just a dog, and I have no idea how it's going to react. And if I am present with this dog and not back when I was 5 years old getting chased and bit by the dog, not thinking about the future of will I ever get a dog again or anything like that, right? But if I'm just present and I'm curious, then I will approach that dog and ask the question, is your dog friendly? Right? And even ask the question, do I want to pet this dog? Maybe I don't want to, and that's fine too, right? And that's another thing, is that we feel compelled to do things sometimes because it's just the way it's supposed to be, but that's all just made up, right? And so the only thing that is really happening is you looking at that dog. That's the only thing that's real. Everything else beyond that is just made up, constructed by the mind, right? And so when we talk about presence, right, we talk about that, the ability to really just be here right now and experiencing life as it is happening right now, right? Now, it's very, it's tricky. It's not necessarily easy because, again, since you were 2 or 3 years old, as long as you can remember, you have been pushed the other way. You have been practicing the other way. You've been practicing worrying about your future. You've been practicing ruminating about your past on different levels, obviously. Not everybody has that same, it all depends on how you were brought up and your experiences in life as to how worried you are or how much you're ruminating, right? But either way, though, you have been trained not to be right here, right now, right? Like even on television, right? We'll be right back, right? After this commercial break, you're looking forward to what happens at the end of the commercial break, right? And it's these little subtle ways in which we've been trained that make it very difficult to just, intuitively be present. Most of us are not, right? Except musicians. Musicians are, and certain other artists, I guess, those, but those occupations are what, and the same thing with like firemen, right? Or firefighters, right? Or ambulance drivers, right? Those people have to be very present with what they're doing. Otherwise somebody's going to die, right? A musician has to be very present with what they're doing. Otherwise they're going to mess up the music, right? They're not going to be able to, you cannot play music if you're thinking about what's happening after the concert, right? You have to be right here, right now, or else the music's just not going to work, because music is something that is present, right? Music is something that is happening right here, right now. It is not happening in the future. It is not happening in the past, right? You might be listening to a recording of the music, but as you're listening to that music, it is happening as you're listening to it. The notes are unfolding in the present moment, right? And so how can we practice, being present, right? It's very, very simple. It's through simple practices of meditation. Right? And that can be either formal or informal, right? As I told you yesterday, I have lots of clients. I told you specifically about one client, but I have many others who don't do well with 10 minutes or 15 minutes a day, right? I have some clients who do amazing with 15, 20, 30 minutes a day, but many do not. And that's okay, right? What it is just like anything else, right? Just commit to and set the intention to be present, right? And as you notice your mind wandering to something that is not present, you simply bring it back. Now, this is where formal meditation is very, very helpful with this, right? Because that's the whole process of meditation, right? Is just, what we do is, if you learn from me, what you'll learn is to pay attention to your abdomen rising and falling with each in-breath and each out-breath. Okay. And you just basically watch. I even, very, real beginners, I even say, put one of your hands on your abdomen and feel it moving with your breath. Right. And and the way it works, and I illustrate this to everyone, the way it works is you're going to sit there for, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. You're going to be right in there paying attention to your hand rising and falling on your belly. It's going to feel great. You're going to be locked in. Another 30 seconds goes by. Now you're up to like 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. And then all of a sudden, boom, what am I going to eat for dinner tonight? Where, do I have enough stuff in the refrigerator? I should have bought the bread the other day when I was at the store. I really, that was a real fail that I didn't buy the bread the other day when I had the chance. Now I got to go back to the store just to get bread. And now your mind is going, right? And that's what the mind does. So when you find yourself doing that, just simply bring it back. Bring your attention back to that hand on your abdomen. It's that simple. And every time you do that, you build a little bit more skill, right? And you build not only the skill, but you build the awareness, right? And that's the key, right? That is the key. Because when we're in the present moment, we can really be aware of what's happening, right? Whether it's our attention going or it's some signal that our body is giving us, right? Again, my amazing client this morning, James, what's up, bro? You're doing amazing, and you're inspiring me with how great you're doing with this work. So James this morning described how he felt anger approaching in a certain twitch or an itchy feeling in his neck, right? And what he said, and this is his words, right? He said, there's that itch. It's time to pause. And it's time to reset myself and let go of whatever it is that's making me feel angry, because now I can come back to the present, right? So that itch that James felt was in the present moment. It wasn't the memory of an itch. It wasn't the imagination of an itch. It was an itch happening right now. And the only reason James was able to notice that itch is because he's paying attention to what is happening as it is happening. And again, it's a skill, and every skill can be developed through practice. Now, I just told you about how you do that with formal meditation, but you can do the same thing informally. And the way to do that is to pick a couple of different activities that you're doing, right? So whether it's like taking a walk, or you're washing your dishes, or you're taking a shower, or you're brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth is a great one, right? So how many times do we? I mean, I even have I have plenty of clients who tell me that no, brushing my teeth is when I get other things done. like that's when I plan my day, is when I'm brushing my teeth, right? That's the thing. You're not present then, right? So instead, right, take some time to plan your day after you brush your teeth or before you brush your teeth. But while you're brushing your teeth, or while you're washing the dishes, while you're vacuuming a floor, while you're driving, while you're doing any of all these things, be present with it. Just pay attention to it, right? Pay attention to the sound that the toothbrush makes in different areas of your mouth. Pay attention to the feeling of your hand going back and forth, and the action that's happening in the mouth of the toothbrush, right? Smell the aroma of the toothpaste, right? Taste the toothpaste. Feel the foam happening, right? There's so much there. And there's so much there in every present moment in everything we do, right? So paying attention to it, and it's just like the hand on the belly, right? When you find your mind going and thinking about, an email you have to send later, right? Just bring your awareness back to the sound or the taste or the smell or whatever it is of your toothbrush, right? Or bring yourself back to the dishes that you're doing. Bring yourself back if you're walking and you find your mind wandering off like this. As you're walking, bring your attention into your feet, right? And just notice your feet moving. So, and you can even say, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right? And the more you do that, right? Every time you do that, every time you're brushing your teeth and you bring yourself back from a meeting that you're thinking about in 5 hours from now, and you bring yourself back to the sensation of your toothbrush, two really important things happen. Number one, you train yourself to control that attention, right? You're building a strength to be able to do that. Right? But most importantly, even more importantly than the strength to control it, is you're building the awareness of it. And that is simply happening because you're paying attention. All right? And that's all it is, folks. There's nothing more fancy than that. It's very simple, but again, it's not that easy. Because again, since you were 3 years old, you've been practicing doing the exact opposite of this. That's why we're adults thinking about emails while we're brushing our teeth. It's because of the first grade, second grade, third grade, all that stuff, right? Because we've developed that skill in our mind. And so that's where a coach can be very influential and very helpful for people, right? Somebody to guide you, somebody to hold you accountable, somebody to inspire you, right? And also somebody to help to make changes, tweak the process a little bit, because not every practice works for everybody, right? There's hundreds of books you can buy on mindfulness, right? And some of them are really, really good, right? There's apps you can buy. There's on YouTube you can type in mindfulness to YouTube and you'll get millions of videos to watch, right? I mean, if not tens of thousands for sure, right? The problem is, though, that sometimes, okay, that's not working for me. It's just not. And so what happens is so many people then, when they get to that point where the author or the YouTuber or the app maker, does something that just doesn't click, doesn't work for me, well, then mindfulness must not work for me. So I guess I'm just going to give up on it and, try something else, right? And that breaks my heart. Right? That if you want to break art's heart, that's how to do it, right? Because mindfulness can work for everyone. And I am living proof of that. And so are many of my clients. And again, I have so many different, like right now, I currently have about 12 clients. And I would say probably among the 12, there's probably 8 different ways in which they are able to practice these things. And that's where the benefit of having someone behind you to help you with that comes in. So if you're interested in that, okay, I tell you this every day, go to my website. Right on the bottom of every single page, there's a banner that has a clock in it. And it says something about book a free call. I don't really remember what it is. Hit the button in there. You'll go into my calendar. In the calendar, you're going to see a bunch of dates that are, either gray or black. The black ones mean I'm available. You pick one that you're also available with. Click on it. Very simple. Put in your email address, some very basic information, hit save, you're done. And then I take it from there. And then on that day and that time that you selected, we will have a 45-minute conversation like this on the video, or we can do a phone call, but we will have a 45-minute conversation that will be a coaching session for you. Okay? And we will get to the idea of how we can approach this work for you. Not for you and 10,000 other people, but for you, right? Because nobody's the same. Nobody's experiences have been the same. Nobody's fears are the same. Nobody's desires are the same. And that's where a coach comes in. And that's where I become very valuable to you. And I would love to do that for you. So I hope that you go to my website, artburnscoaching.com, click on that banner and schedule your coaching session. And by the way, I don't charge you anything for that first session. That's on me. I cover the cost of that. Okay. And because it's not about, for me, it's about getting help for you. Right. And so I'm willing to invest in that. And I do it almost every day. So please book yourself a spot. And hopefully I'm not too busy. But seriously, if you go on that calendar, maybe you're in Europe or in Eurasia or South America or something, and the times that are available aren't working for you, just send me an email. Okay, just send an email, art@artburnscoaching.com, which you'll also find on the website. Send me an email. Let me know what works for you, and we'll work it out. Okay, I've done that before for people. I've met people at, in the middle of the night, at very early morning. I will make it happen. So just let me know if you have any problems, okay? And again, by all means, if you have any questions about what I've talked about today or on any other day, please do not hesitate to ask. All right, because it does no good if you don't understand this, but if you do understand it, it literally could change everything for you. And I've watched it change. I've watched it change for me. I've watched it change for others. So it really is that beneficial. All right, everybody. Thanks again for listening. Thanks again for watching. I wish you well. I'll be back again tomorrow to talk about tomorrow. We're going to do a special self-compassion episode. I'm really looking forward to that. All right, everybody. Take care and have a great day. Talk to you soon.